Will the Pixel 11 support GrapheneOS? Is your Firefox install compromised? Will Signal allow a way to register without a phone number? All this and more coming up on This Week in Privacy 66. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to This Week in Privacy, our weekly series where we discuss the latest updates with what we're working on within the Privacy Guides community and this week's top stories in data privacy and cybersecurity while taking questions from viewers like you. I am Nate, and with me this week, after a bit of an absence, is Jordan. How have you been, Jordan?
Good, just been super busy with video content on the back end, but really excited to hop back on here with you to discuss the latest privacy and security news.
Yeah, there is a boatload of stuff happening with videos that we will definitely get to later on in the episode, but it is good to have you back for sure. I guess with that, we'll go ahead and jump right into our first story, which is about the new Pixel 11. And I believe you're going to be taking that one first, Jordan. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So this story here is about Google's new Pixel 11 series devices. Quoting from this, Google says the Tensor G6 delivers up to 25% faster browsing and 15% faster app loads compared to last year's Tensor G5. The Tensor G6 is the updated system on a chip in the Pixel 11 series of devices. The chip pairs with an upgraded image signal processor with a new TPU, and Google says it's 50% more powerful than the previous generation, enabling features like 120 times Pro Zoom, instant night sight on the Pro models, and this TPU chip also drives Gemini Nano, Google's on-device AI model, which the company says now runs with higher quality and lower latency. But the most important thing that we wanted to highlight from this story is the Tensor G6 works alongside a new Titan M3 security processor built for post-quantum cryptography, which Google describes as protection against emerging highly advanced digital attacks. And the company adds that the Titan M3 has earned common criteria certification at the same level that's used for SIM and bank cards. The chip also handles quantum-safe secure boot and runs Trusty, Google's trusted execution environment on all 4 phones. So this is always a thing that happens every time Google announces a new device. I guess we should dive into the most obvious thing and the question that we have as this week's episode. Will this support GrapheneOS? So I guess I'll throw this back over to you, Nate, and we can kind of discuss this a little bit. Is this, what's the timeline going to look like for this? Do you think it's something that we can expect soon? What are the updates that GrapheneOS has shared so far?
Yeah, so I guess I'll lead with the answer, which is honestly we don't know. So when for those who may be just joining us or haven't heard, Google last year, I think it was mostly last year, made a lot of changes to their policies that kind of shoot all Android developers in the foot, or at least Android ROMs like Graphene, Calyx, Lineage, which is they slowed down the number of releases that they're publishing for the AOSP project. I think they slowed down the number of security patches too, but I could be wrong about that. They stopped publishing the Pixel device trees specifically. So basically now they have to like reverse engineer all the hardware changes. And then on top of it, they made a lot of the development closed source. So it used to be that they did all their merge requests and everything up, or I may be using the wrong term there, merge request, but they did all their development stuff in the open. So people could kind of see like, okay, they're working on this, they're working on that. We could also push back if we're like, hey, why are you adding this feature that sounds sus? Now, instead, they're doing it all closed. And then just every so often, they're like, all right, here's an AOSP update publicly. So it's still technically source available in open source. It's just now we don't get to see what they're doing until they're done. And between all of that, Graphene at the time, Pixel 10 was the newest one, and they were basically like, "Look, we'll support the Pixel 10, but we don't really know what the future is going to hold because of all this." And they said that they want to keep trying to support Pixels as much as they can, but between that and there's also, it's worth noting, there are other hardware changes to the Pixel 11 aside from just like the Tensor and the Titan chip. The most notable one that I've seen people mentioning is they switched the modem. It used to be a Samsung Exynos, I believe, and now it's like a MediaTek something. So yeah, it's I mean, even Graphene themselves have basically said like, look, we're not going to know until we actually have a Pixel 11 in our hands, and then we can like kind of take a look at it and see. I think you shared, if I can go find it, you did share in our chat from the Graphene forums. It was like
Yes.
their thread when they were keeping people updated.
Yeah, so
I
here
guess
it
I'll
is
let,
on screen here. I've got the link here. If you want to take a look at that.
yeah. Oop,
Okay.
that one.
Yeah, so if we look here, it's kind of a timeline of the events that happened to get this support for the Pixel 10, which I guess we can kind of extrapolate somewhat to the Pixel 11. So if you don't know, the Pixel 10 was announced on August 20th, 2025. And originally, GrapheneOS said it's too early to ask whether they would have support for it at that point. And then 7 days after that, they were able to order and confirm that it supports unlocking. So, at this point, it's been not even a week yet, so we don't really know what the outcome of that's going to be. If the devices will be unlockable, we can assume that it might be, but obviously the GrapheneOS team hasn't actually gotten the devices yet. So if you scroll all the way back up to the top, January 10th is when it was considered stable. So, a couple of months, 4 months, pretty much what we're looking at here for the Pixel 10. So I would not be buying a Pixel 11 if your immediate need is to run GrapheneOS, because from their previous experience doing this, it took 4 months. It may take less, it may take more. We don't really know because, like Nate said, it's all stuff that's like not information that we know at this point, and also like they have to reverse engineer that. And one other thing I quickly wanted to share as well is GrapheneOS did do a post on Twitter, and they said the Pixel 11 hasn't been released yet. We aren't going to have an idea about how long it will take until after we have access to devices and the code. We'll post about it on our feed when we have information to share. No need to ask us for updates since we'll make posts about it. So that's kind of the current situation, unfortunately, which is kind of, it's good to know that they're going to post updates, but we don't really have a huge amount of information at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And one other thing that's worth noting, for those of you who are not following us on any of our social media, we did actually push out a quick short about this whole thing. Google, or excuse me, not Google, Graphene has that whole their partnership with Motorola now. And so that could really play into this either way. It could be that because of that partnership, they're able to get their hands on like certain software resources like AOSP. Maybe they can get a copy of AOSP from Motorola early, and that will help them speed up the timeline. Maybe they're able to take advantage of some of their expertise. I don't know. Or maybe they'll just hit a point where they're just like, screw it. Like, if Google's going to make it this hard, we've got this other manufacturer that we're working closely with, and we have complete insight into the whole process. We really, really don't know. So, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure that's a mention too. It's part of the math, I would think, but we don't know what part of the math. And yeah, fortunately, I don't think we have to wait too long for the Pixels to ship. The pre-order, I think, is usually just a couple weeks before they start shipping. So hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have an update. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of somewhat off topic, but what do you personally think of the devices? Is this something you're going to be pre-ordering? Are you going to be upgrading this year or no?
Probably. So my wife and I both have the Pixel 6a, which I think stops getting support in July. I was looking at the Pixel 11 series. So I'm the kind of person that I like to buy the newest one just so that way I've got like the longest amount of security updates and stuff. And then I'll run that into the ground. So I'm probably going to get the 11A whenever they announce it. Although my wife, Jokingly, I sent her the 11 Fold, and I was like, "Oh, we should get you this," and she was like, unironically, "Yes, that looks so cool. I would happily buy that." So I think what we're gonna do, because we don't really have $1,000 to drop right now, I think what we're gonna do is probably wait until the 12 Fold, so like next year's phone, and then go ahead and order that for her, and I'll just get the 11A because I don't really care. I don't need my phone to do a whole lot, but she likes to play some games. She has 10 billion pictures of the cats, like all that kind of stuff. So she could use a little bit nicer of a phone.
Yeah,
How
I
about you?
think the main thing for me, so I do have I kind of have a bunch of phones because like obviously we need to do testing on different devices and things. But the device that I do have is a Pixel 9 Pro, and I think the funniest thing about the 11 Pro is that it starts with 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is less than the 9 and the 10. So you're actually getting less RAM on this year's model, unless you pay more. So I don't know. I was not really impressed. Let's just say that is a little. I know that RAM prices are getting high and stuff, but like, if you're decreasing the amount of RAM on a Pro device year after year, then I don't know. That doesn't leave a very nice taste in my mouth. But yeah, I've got 5 years of security updates left, so I'm not in any rush to go and upgrade. And I've never really had any issue with performance or anything. So I am not going to be upgrading unless Google does something like really cool, like there's like some really massive security feature that they add, which the Titan M3 security processor is really cool and stuff, but it does seem like it's not a massive leap in security that would be worth spending, my goodness, $1,000 or more on a new phone. So I'm always trying to get them secondhand and not give Google money because yeah, Google not a great company. But yeah, so I guess we could also talk a little bit. You did put together like a short this week, kind of describing a lot of what we've talked about this week as well. If you want to dive into that a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say, to be honest. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick here. But yeah, I just every once in a while when there are these big announcements like the graphene thing or the the graphene siding with Motorola thing or the like this announcement, we try to make sure that we get some kind of video out pretty quick. There wasn't really a lot about the privacy and security this time around. Like you said, like the Titan, it's got the post-quantum cryptography stuff on it, but that's kind of like future proofing and getting ahead of the curve. It's not like something that everybody needs to run out and buy right now. So there wasn't really enough to justify a whole video. But yeah, we did put out this this short here, which is not on this channel. I'll have to go find it. But yeah, we just put out a little short video, kind of giving people a quick rundown of all this new stuff. So I don't know. That's I don't think there's too much to say about that one.
Yeah, I
Having a hard
guess
time
we can
finding it.
just cover this comment here from Dag Overhaul. Pixel 11 looks like a downgrade from the Pixel 10, lol. Yeah, it's like what I was saying. Like the Pixel 10 looks like it might be better in some aspects. It's obviously we don't really know the specifics yet on like performance and things because I think it's only being given to like people that are media and they're obviously going to have tainted opinions because they've gotten a free product from Google. So let's wait and see what that looks like. But Google's never had good performing devices. And oh yeah, so here's the short we put out that Nate put together. So yeah, if you want to share that with people in your life about this new release, then that'd be cool too. Yeah, I think it's some interesting news. We wanted to cover it kind of as the highlight this week because I feel like everyone in the community is probably going to be having this question. So yeah, so Dag says it's 12 gigabytes of RAM versus 16 in the Pixel 10. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like it's actually wild. It is kind of ridiculous that that's something they decided to do.
Yeah, for sure. Not That Private asked what post quantum cryptography algorithm does the M3 use? From what I can tell, it doesn't look like they've disclosed that yet. I think they're still planning to publish a lot more like technical details. This was just kind of the initial like get people interested, which is also why, like you mentioned, like there's probably some tech YouTubers that have this and stuff, but they kind of focus on the hardware, the performance, and everything. So it looks like the Open Titan chips. This comes from the AI summary, so I apologize if this is wrong. It says the Open Titan chips, which is Google's open source root of trust, currently use Sphinx Plus, also known as SLHDSA or FIPS 205 for post-quantum and secure boot, with future extensions planned for lattice-based schemes like dilithium and Kyber. So if that helps, a lot of the more technical stuff goes way over my head. But yeah, I think just keep an eye out, and I'm sure they'll be releasing more details in the near future.
Yeah, I guess we can dive into some quick forum threads here. There were some people asking some questions and saying, you know, some comments. Do you want to just grab one of those real quick?
Yeah, sure. So we posted about this on the forum, discuss.privacyguides.net. There's a good place to go and ask your questions in advance if you won't be able to watch the stream. And we had a couple comments speculating again on whether or not Graphene will support it. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly just that. So one person said that they think Graphene will support it, and they cited, I think, the same quote that you cited earlier from Twitter, where they said it hasn't been released yet. We don't have an idea how long it'll take. Somebody else said, I think not. Somebody said, I'm crossing my fingers that the 11 will be supported. Titan, M3, and Graphene could be a match made in heaven. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Sweet.
I think that'll take us into our next story here. And we're going to talk about the White House is potentially allowing cybersecurity firms to do offensive hackbacks, which is new. This has never been official before. So on Wednesday, the National Security Presidential Memorandum was signed that instructs the National Coordination Center to establish a program that would allow private security companies to apply for approval to hack foreign cybercrime organizations. Let's see. The program will be overseen by executive directors designated by the Justice and Homeland Security departments, and security firms participating in the program will undergo vetting before entering into contracts with one of the two departments. Additionally, the memorandum requires procedures ensuring operations comply with U.S. Constitution, federal law, and international obligations. Participating companies will have to maintain a bond or escrow of at least $1 million that will be forfeited if they don't comply with contractual agreements. And they must also immediately stop operations if they discover activity exceeding approved limits, including unintended target of U.S. citizens or U.S.-based systems, and notify the National Coordination Center. The White House said the program is intended to disrupt foreign criminal organizations involved in ransomware attacks, phishing campaigns, financial fraud, sextortion schemes, and impersonation scams, and it added that U.S. consumers have reported losing more than $20.8 billion with a B to cyber-enabled crime in 2025. So this is a bit of a departure because up until now, I mean, yeah, like nobody has ever authorized hackback like this. That's kind of what they're calling it. And I don't know. This is just really it's hard for me to put into words. It's one of those things where it's very aggressive, and it's very. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions here. Like for one, this kind of blurs, or I should say, further blurs the line between government and private companies. Right? We already have so many issues with all these defense contractors and surveillance contractors, Flock and Palantir, and all these data brokers. And there's already like a very blurry line, especially in the military, right, between like private contractors and government. And when you have a private contractor acting on behalf of the government, that's definitely not cool. I have questions personally about differentiating cybercrime from state sanctioned activities. Like companies are notoriously cautious about attributing cyber attacks to other countries, and some of that is a political thing. Like you don't want to accuse somebody of something unless you're 100% positive, but also at the same time, it can be really hard. Like code is code, and there can be little indicators based on patterns, but it's really hard to definitively say like this company or this group was behind this attack. When an organization comes forward and attributes a cyber attack, it's a pretty big deal, actually. And especially I'm thinking of like North Korea, for example, which for the record, I'm not defending this, but North Korea largely funds themselves by like Bitcoin theft and scams and stuff like that. Like their government has been so heavily sanctioned. That's the only way the country can make money anymore and stay afloat. And so that just feels like a gray area to me where it's like, okay, if North Korea hacks Coinbase and steals a bunch of Bitcoin, is that a cybercrime or is that a state-sponsored attack? And are they allowed to hack back or not? Because it does... I mean, I didn't read the memorandum itself. I probably should. But this article didn't say anything about attacking state operations. It said trying to deter cybercrime and disrupt cybercrime. So like, I don't know, that just feels like a really big gray area to me. And the other thing that they noted in here is that this could cause perverse incentives. Like $1 million for most companies is not really much. I mean, we see companies get fined millions of dollars for privacy violations, and it's just a cost of doing business for them. So this whole idea of like, oh, you have to put down $1 million, that's like telling me I have to put $5 in as a deposit to get somewhere. Like, oh, $5 in, $5 back. I don't even care. It's $5. Keep it. Like, I'm not that hard up for money. So, yeah. And what was it at the very end? One of the people they interviewed said that they described it as a perpetual motion for billable threats. So the idea is that private firms might have a financial incentive to create or exaggerate threats to justify their contracts, which we already see that happening a lot. So, yeah. And this is, I'm assuming you added this here, Jordan, but at the end of the notes here, we have like, why is this still important for people living outside of the United States? Which is a really good question. And I think it's just because this really raises the possibility of something going wrong. If a private company attacks, let's say they attribute it to, I don't know, China, and they hack a Chinese company, and China says, no, we weren't behind this, whether they mean it, like whether it's true or not. If China insists, like, we are not behind this, that could escalate things. And it's just, the world is so closely interconnected now that everything, I mean, we've been seeing it play out for the last couple of years, right? Is like everything that, especially big countries, China, Russia, UK, US, everything that we do has knock-on effects to other countries around the world. So it's just one of those things where like, I feel like there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. There's so many, and especially in the cyberspace, you can't physically see where you're at, right? I'm going to digress real quick. Darknet Diaries did an episode where he talked about, he's done a lot of episodes where he talked about pen testers. And one of them that stuck out to me specifically was they were hired to test a hospital. And they talked about all the different systems they got into. And one of them, they didn't know what the system was, but they like wrote it down in their report. And they mentioned like, oh, we got into this system. And that particular system, as soon as they said that, everybody was like, wait, what? Which one? Hold on. We'll call you back. And it turned out they had hacked into, I think it was like a laser machine being used for surgery, like actively being used in a surgery while they were in the system. And thankfully, they didn't do anything. Like they just went in and they were like, all right, make a note. We got into this. Move on to the next target. But that just kind of shows that like when you're in cyberspace, you're looking at an IP address. You're looking at a server name. You can't tell if that's in Beijing or Moscow or Uganda or Germany. Like you don't know necessarily right off the bat. So I think there's just a lot of room for things to go wrong here, for people to get caught up in crossfire, for tensions to escalate. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take on this thing. I don't know if I missed anything on this story that you had any more thoughts on, but.
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add, but I think it's definitely an important discussion to have about this. And I guess I would say, what can people do about this? Like, is this something that people can have a say about, or is this something that's kind of just being decided without any like review from the public?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I would imagine, maybe somebody who's a lawyer can correct me, I would imagine that this is probably going to get challenged by somebody in court, just for being like reckless and scary, and possibly like some kind of international illegal thing. Not like we seem to care about that these days, but I don't know. I don't know what the average person can do other than just the usual advice we would give to anybody, which is, try to keep your stuff updated, try to keep your stuff good passwords and stuff. Try to keep your stuff as relatively hacker proof as possible. I don't want to sound paranoid, but maybe a little disaster prep. I mean, we've covered so many cyber attacks that take down, hospitals, fuel pumps, just kind of having like enough basic cash and food on hand to get you through a few days is really not a bad idea ever for anybody. Because you never know if a cyber attack will bring down the payment systems or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if we, the people, have a whole lot of options here. You could maybe try contacting your representatives and being like, hey, this seems bad. Can we not do this? But I don't realistically know if there are any laws being violated here. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess we can dive into some site updates here. I'll just dive into some of the stuff I've been working on, and then Nate can go and explain some of the videos we've published this week. So we've got upcoming videos here. We've got a tier list, password tier list video that's coming up. Nate has been editing that, and it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. We just have to do a little bit of final checking. There's a video about creating a Bitcoin wallet without connecting to the internet, completely cold, instead of, using some sort of generation method. And the reason why we wanted to talk about that, we use Diceware system instead of, using a chip to generate that wallet seed phrase, because there was a recent issue that we did do a post on the privacy news section of our site about cold wallet, I believe, cold card, hardware wallets. And basically the generation system that they used was predictable, which allowed basically anyone to access the wallet seed phrases. So obviously that is extremely bad, and that was a complete disaster. So Jonah was like, well, there's a way to fix this, right? So he put together this video on how you can use basically a dice, a word list, and how you can basically create a really secure seed phrase that is 100% random instead of being predictable, like with the terrible situation that happened with Cold Card. So that's going to be an interesting one, which should be out on, I believe, 2 days from now. So definitely look out for that. And yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing in terms of, I've been working on some things on the behind the scenes stuff, working on thumbnails, stuff like that for videos. We're kind of trying to be debugging the flock video a little bit. We're not really sure why, but it didn't seem to reach too many people. So we're trying to work out why that was the case, and kind of be messing around with that too. Okay, so there's also there's a release this week as well for the site, which had some updates. We updated the foundations and organizational donors on the website, removed a spam link, and there was a fix to the Yubico UTF on Linux page. So yeah, that was kind of a small amount of updates this week on the site. And there was some articles as well that Freya and Nate have been working on. So there was one about a 0-day vulnerability in Windows from Nightmare Eclipse, severe Zoom vulnerability allowing malicious meeting participants to take over your device. Californian city declares state of emergency after cyber attack. And there was also one about an 18-year-old Linux kernel bug that allowed for full system takeover. So yeah, let me throw it back to you, Nate, and you can talk a little bit about the videos that we've been publishing and that are coming out soon.
Yeah, so we've been kind of pushing out a lot of videos in very short order, which is exciting, very cool for us. We put out one. We've been advertising this one for a while. There was we did a video about Bull Run, which was the NSA's attempt in like the 90s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, I think, to either, what did we say here? To either hack, cooperate, interdict, or influence basically everything, and all the different ways they tried to compromise encryption on the internet. That went out last week, but now it's finally out to the public. So everybody can go watch it. Definitely go check that out. Very proud of that video. And then also, yeah, this is the Flock one that Jordan mentioned. We're not really sure why, but for some reason it really, really did not perform well, which is sad because this is an issue that everybody's, I think I mentioned last week that it was on a John Oliver episode, and like this is an issue that has hit the mainstream, and for some reason the video just didn't do very well. So I don't know, if you have any ideas, let us know for sure. But in the meantime, you can head over to neat.tube and check it out. Or there's also a link in the newsletter, of course, and you can check it out for yourself, share it with your friends and family. There's actually a National Week of Action Against ALPRs starting Sunday and going through Saturday. So this video was kind of released to coincide with that and kind of hopefully get people interested and fired up for it. But I think that's noalprs.com for more information on that. But yeah, that is pretty much all we've been up to in terms of video. I mean, pretty much all we've been up to. It's a lot. It's a lot for a week. we've done a lot this week. But yeah, all this is made possible by our supporters. You can sign up for a membership or donate at privacyguides.org, or of course, pick up some swag at shop.privacyguides.org. Privacy Guides is a nonprofit which researches and shares privacy-related information and facilitates a community on our forum and matrix where people can ask questions and get advice about staying private online and preserving their digital rights. Now, as a reminder, as you're watching the stream, go ahead and leave any questions you have for us in the chat. They can be related to the stories, or they can be random privacy and security questions. Actually, on that note, I'm going to go back real quick to Laptop here left a couple of questions when we were talking about the White House story. You said, why would it stop being bad just because the state is doing it? It's not that it stops being bad. It's that then that becomes an attack. If we go after, if there's a private hacking group in, I'm just picking a random country and I'm sorry. If there's a private hacking group in Cambodia that's going around doing scams and hacking into people's Facebook accounts, and we take them out, that is distinctly different from like attacking a government. If the government of Cambodia is breaking into people's Facebook accounts, it's just politically, it turns into a very different thing. It's the difference between like taking out a mugger versus taking out a soldier, which is still, there's still a lot of like, I don't know. I feel icky like operating in other people's space, but my point being, it doesn't necessarily stop being bad. It's just, it's a whole different can of worms. And you also said, aren't IP addresses allocated more or less regionally? You might be right. I don't know. That goes above my head. I'm just saying it's not as obvious as like, if you're flying over a physical country and you drop a physical bomb, it's a little bit harder, or at least, I mean, obviously missiles can hit the wrong target. We've seen that a lot in the last 25 years. But my point being is like, it's not like you're flying over one country and you drop a bomb and it lands in a completely different continent. Like, I don't know. It feels to me like there's a lot more room for things to go wrong on that, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But speaking about being wrong, I think we're going to move on to our next stories, which we have a few stories about companies acting shady, starting with, surprise, surprise, Amazon. And I'm going to let Jordan go ahead and take this one away.
Yeah, let's do that. So this story here is Amazon will train on Twitch streamers' content by default unless they opt out. So I think we should start by saying, just in case you don't know, Twitch is owned by Amazon. They're basically the same company, right? It kind of makes sense actually, because, you know, Amazon has such a large presence in the hosting space, I guess. They have Amazon Web Services, which, you know, kind of makes sense why they would be able to run such a service like this. So this is kind of a very controversial change. I think a lot of streamers are going to be disabling this because, you know, obviously, why would you want your content to be used to train AI? I'm not really sure. It doesn't really benefit you exactly. So just, I guess, reading a couple of quotes from this article here. In a stream on the official Twitch channel, Twitch head of community Mary Kish and chief product officer Mike Minton addressed a live audience of nearly 3,000 aggrieved users, many of whom were posting anti-AI sentiments in the chat. Why is it not opt-in? That's what everyone is spamming in the chat. I get it. Let me opt in versus making me opt out, Minton said. Well, there's an honest answer. If this was opt-in, nobody would opt in, and that's honestly the answer. So I think that kind of highlights the main issue that we have with this, right? Like, this sort of thing is something that is kind of becoming an issue, right? A lot of these AI companies will do this. Well, they'll say, you can use our services, but you have to opt out. And the opt out is kind of hard to see. It's not really super obvious that it's possible. I think this does basically the same thing, right? And quoting again from the article, in some cases, this created confusion among streamers about whether their content had already been fed to Amazon without their knowledge. When one user asked if their videos had already been used for training, Minton responded, "I don't actually know the answer to that question because I don't know what Amazon has done in terms of model training and what they've used and not used." So obviously that is extremely concerning, especially because, they should have not been doing that if you didn't opt into that. I guess they could technically do that based on their terms of service, but not really great. Kish noted that Twitch is not unique in its use of user content for AI training. Meta, for example, uses public content from its platforms to train its own AI models, meaning that if your Facebook and Instagram accounts are public, then your data has probably already been used for Meta's AI training. And if you live in the UK, you can opt out of Meta's training. If not, the only way to opt out is to use the private setting, which isn't feasible for creators who monetize their accounts. So I guess throwing this back to you, Nate, this is like one of these obvious things where it's like, why is this opt-in? Shouldn't this be like, I mean, why is this opt-out? Why isn't this, the other way around? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like this guy said, this Kish dude is they know that most people would not opt in, and to their very, very tiny defense, I don't think he necessarily meant that maliciously. I think he just meant it's a fact. Like most people don't change the defaults. Most people seem to even forget that a lot of their accounts and devices have settings. And most people just don't go looking for that kind of stuff. They get a phone or they get an account and they just hit the ground and start running. And especially with things like this, like, yeah, they'll tweak the profile picture and the banner and the bio, but they're not going to go into the privacy settings. That's just, they don't even care about that. So, yeah, if it was opt-in, nobody would opt in just because people never change the default settings. But that is also like the malicious side of it, is they know that nobody changes the default settings. So if we make it opt out, most people, even when they hear about this, they're just going to be like, whatever. It's too much work to click 3 things, which, actually, to be fair, I think I saw somebody say somewhere that they weren't able to do this on their phone in the mobile app, and they had to actually like log in on the desktop. So they're kind of making this as obnoxious as possible. Although somebody else responded to them and said the mobile app isn't designed for stream or for creators; it's designed for audience, and this applies to creators. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the simple answer: is like people don't change the default settings. So if they make it opt out, most people just never bother to log in and fix it. But
yeah, I guess another thing is, is there really anything that people can do? Are there alternatives? Like, is there even another platform? I feel like, what have we've got YouTube, maybe. I feel like YouTube would also be doing kind of some stuff with AI training data as well. So it's like, it almost feels like this is becoming like an industry standard thing, like you said, with Meta and all that. How are you feeling about it?
yeah, it really sucks. My wife actually sent me a TikTok about this the other day. That's where she heard about it, because, oh man, this real quick, this announcement was a train wreck. The TikTok that she sent me was like a person, no, for real, it was a person like commenting on all these the parts that were in here, and like how amazing it was that they're just like, oh yeah, we don't know if they've already trained on your data. And they didn't mention it in the article, but at one point somebody asked them, like, is the official Twitch channel going to opt out of this? And what's her name? The Mary Kish, she was like, yeah, I think so, probably. And it's just like, wait, what? It's opt-in and you're going to opt out? But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Laptop here said your featured link is this StreamYard thing. But yeah, StreamYard only gives you like 100 views. And I don't think there's a free tier, actually. I think we're paying even for this tier. It only gives you 100 people. And I feel like the issue is discoverability, right? Because like, honestly, yeah, there's a ton of options. You could stream in Discord, you could stream in on Zoom, you could stream in Signal, you could stream, like, there's a million other places. But the reason people use social media at all, the reason we use Twitter and Blue Sky and YouTube is the discoverability. Like, we're trying to reach new people, especially with our message of privacy. And when you're a Twitch streamer, you're trying to reach new people. So I don't know. There's so many things working against people, right? There's like the network effect of, like, again, yeah, you could set up your own PeerTube instance and stream off that, but like, who the hell's using PeerTube? And And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and a feedback loop of like, oh, I'm not going to set up PeerTube because nobody's there. Well, nobody's there because nobody sets up a PeerTube. And it's just, it's tough. There's really no easy ways out, I think, especially when we talk about video, because like video is so massive. And like, I guess the nice thing about streaming is you don't have to keep the old replays. So that helps. But like YouTube, for example, if you're going to make like a PeerTube channel with all your YouTube videos, like video storage adds up quick and gets really expensive really fast. So it's not great. Yeah, laptop. It's called the network effect. So
yeah, all right. I guess we can dive into this forum post here, which you can grab, because I know you definitely had some thoughts about this one.
Yeah, all right. So one of our forum updates we're going to focus on here is about Proton VPN. So Proton VPN got accused this week of running price sensitivity testing, aka A/B testing, on their customers. And the reason that this particularly became well, I mean, there's a couple layers to this, right? Well, let me just read. Okay, I'll read two posts here that kind of sum this up. So the person who originally posted this said, since Friday, August 7th, 2026, so we saw this actually after we streamed, I think, multiple Redditors have reported that they are seeing different prices for Proton VPN Plus, suggesting that Proton is running price sensitivity testing on their customers, also called A/B testing, and they've got some screenshots here. They said Proton has formally denied it. They've got a screenshot of that. And they said, but Windscribe is calling them out on Twitter for lying by providing evidence, and there's a screenshot of Windscribe's, and they link to all this stuff too. So this turned into a whole discussion. Apparently, you can actually see what is it? I think this came from Windscribe's tweet. You can actually see in the code where it says there's like an A/B test, and if you're getting content A or content B. And we did pin at the top of the post here Proton's response. So this came from somebody on Reddit who I believe works at Proton, and says, they said this topic went very strange very fast, so let me expand and clarify. Proton VPN is $9.99 a month or $83.88 a year. We used to have an introductory offer for 2 years at $4.49 per month. There's been a 2-year intro price of $2.99 per month that has been running for a while on some back-to-back campaigns. That price ended in July, and since then it has been $3.49 a month. They say that there were some like legitimate pricing errors in the screenshots, but they said at the end of a long-standing sale period, we often try an A/B run of the old and new pricing on the website during the transition to see if anything has changed. As explained to answer the speculation on Reddit and as confirmed by others who independently checked it, there is no adaptive pricing, as in it does not vary by browser, operating system, etc., and it is 100% randomized. So for the past several days, some people will still have seen the older, cheaper $2.99 price. I had been of the impression that the A/B was already concluded and there must have been some caching going on, but it's actually due to end on Monday when 100% of people should see the $3.49 price. He says there's no denial that we were doing an A/B evaluation. And then, yeah. So basically they're saying like, yes, we were doing A/B testing, but we weren't doing it based on user. Like it was completely random. I could go to their website right now. Allegedly the test should be over, but theoretically, if the test was running, I could go to their website right now and see one test. And then if I close my browser and clear my cookies or whatever, and I come back later the same day, I might see a different test. So I think, I mean, personally, I have a lot of thoughts about this. Yeah. But I mean, I think I'll throw this one to Jordan, since you've been kind of throwing some questions my way. Do you think there's any concerns over this kind of stuff, even if it's randomized? Like if they're not tracking you and they're not doing it based on your data, because usually that's what companies try to do, right? They try to, the surveillance pricing, like we think you'd be willing to pay a little bit more, so we're going to give you the higher price. But if it's completely randomized, do you still think that's kind of a problem?
I think that this is one of those things where it's like, obviously this is because we know now that this wasn't based on people's information. This is not a privacy issue per se. This is one of these things where it's like, is this a good business practice? Is this ethical? Is this something that we want a company like this to be doing? Is this a good practice that they should be doing? And I think, you know, not to pull out the slippery slope argument, but you know, once you start, we've definitely seen Proton adopting more mainstream marketing tactics, for instance, like, you know, running Black Friday sales, running, you know, advertising campaigns to get people to sign up for discounted plans and stuff like that. And people have been very vocal in the community about how they don't like this, like having banners in their inbox, especially if they're like a paying customer. Some people have very strong feelings about that. I think it's tricky because Proton is one of those companies where they make all their money from people buying subscriptions, and there are so many people that don't buy subscriptions, and it's kind of tricky for them to be able to, you know, stay afloat if they don't have that constant stream of subscribers. But I think the fact that they were using, you know, some sort of A/B testing is obviously, it's not a privacy concern, but it is one of these things where it's like, this feels a little shady. It's one of these things that we don't really like when it comes to like marketing tactics. I think, you know, it's the most important thing here is to not jump to immediate conclusions and assume that Proton was being malicious in this aspect. I think Jonah had an incredible response on this thread, by the way. If you haven't read that, his kind of take was A/B testing objectively isn't adaptive/dynamic pricing nor price discrimination. So this is like basically what he said is it's basically effectively the same as a targeted or limited time sale. So, you know, it's interesting. I think Jonah had probably the most level-headed response in that thread. I think it's important to be a little bit more discerning and not to jump to conclusions immediately, because this wasn't as big of an issue as I think people are making it out to be. Personally, I am not really a big fan of Proton's whole marketing strategy when they come to, you know, promoting their products and their pricing. I think it's a little rough to be paying. I was on the visionary plan, but paying for the visionary plan, still not getting everything in the Proton suite, and I still, you know, had some things that weren't included. But I think it would also be kind of annoying if, you know, you're on the unlimited plan, which is like $200 every 2 years or whatever, and you know you're getting banners telling you to upgrade and stuff like that. I can see why some people might have issues with this sort of tactics, but at the end of the day, it doesn't compromise the privacy of the product, so it's not a huge concern from that aspect. So I'm not sure if it really matters that much. How do you feel about it? Are you kind of on the fence, or are you also kind of not a fan?
I mean, I agree with you with the marketing. Like, I pay for the Duo plan for me and my wife, and yeah, we still get emails occasionally about like, oh, upgrade to the family plan, and it's like, have what? Just 4 accounts sitting around doing nothing? Like, we don't know anybody that's willing to take us up on it, man. I'm sorry, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. I think I'm with Jonah. Yeah, I forgot about that response. That is a really good response. But yeah, it's like it's if it's completely random, if it's not profiling you based on browser or location or any of that kind of stuff, in my opinion, I think that's fine. I think it's the same as a sale, as long as it's not targeting specific people, and even if it's not targeting Jordan and Nate, you know, if it's targeting Brave users or Mac users, or because I think airlines do that, or somebody does that. They're like, if they detect you're on a Mac, they'll like raise the prices a little bit online because they're like, oh, you're on a Mac, clearly you must have money. And it's like, or maybe it was a gift, maybe I got it refurbished, like maybe I got it on a student discount when I was in college. Like, come on, man, that's crazy. So yeah, I don't personally mind as long as it's not actually based on any real data, and if it's totally randomized. I'm a little disappointed to see Windscribe kind of jump on this and attack other privacy. I really don't like seeing privacy projects attack other privacy projects, because to me, it feels very self-defeating. Like, we're all, the example I like to put it in is like, if we talk about like putting it in terms of real life security, everybody shuts their door, locks their door when they leave their house, right? If you leave your house, you lock your door. And yes, that's inconvenient when you come home with an armful of groceries and you have to fumble with the key and unlock the door. But we all agree, like, why not? Like, it's low cost. It's very relatively low effort. Like, it's not as convenient, but it's safer to deter somebody. And in the digital world, most people are basically like leaving the door wide open, unlocked, opening all the windows, and then hanging a sign in the front yard that says "Gone to Dubai for 2 weeks." Like, And for some reason, we're busy like complaining about, oh, you ran a marketing campaign. And it's like, dude, we're all trying to get people on the same, like, at least me, we're just trying to get people to like care at all, to like shut the door. And I don't know. I just don't like seeing privacy companies attack each other like that. If you want to attack the non-privacy companies, if you want to attack WhatsApp and stuff like that, like go for it. But I don't know. That was in poor taste, in my opinion. But I digress.
Yeah, I think, it'd be better if people were using Proton, then they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to use Proton. Their marketing is so bad. I'm going to go back to Gmail." And it's like, well, that's just not a good idea. It doesn't work. So I don't know. I do think that it's important to hold these companies accountable, but also like, it is a little disappointing and unprofessional. And we see like these organizations kind of taking pot shots at each other. I am not a fan, but obviously that's up to these organizations to work out in their marketing and public image. So,
and it really does, not to like linger on it too long, but what ends up happening is for people who, especially if they're on their own and they don't know who to trust, they end up, like you said, just quitting and going back. Because if everything's like, oh, don't use Proton because it's got this minor thing wrong with it. Don't use Molvad because of this. Don't use Windscribe because of it. Like eventually they hit a point where, like you said, they're just like, screw it, I quit. I'm just going back to what I was doing, because every time I use something, somebody comes along and tells me that sucks and I shouldn't be using it. And it's just, especially without knowing their threat model. And it's one of those things where, like, if they don't have somebody that they can go to, like I have friends and family that hit me up all the time and they're like, hey, are iPhones really that private? And it's like, well, I know this person is never going to use graphene. So honestly, yes, I'd rather you buy an iPhone instead of like a crappy LG phone or something. And it's just, people don't have, like, if you make it too hard, they're just going to give up. And yeah, it's not cool to see that happening in the space. I digress. I'm getting off topic, but yeah, so that was a thing. And just remember not to jump to conclusions. And another company, it was another company laptop. Did another company attack Proton on a customer? It was Windscribe picked up this story and basically called out Proton and said, no, you are doing A/B tests. Here's the code. But again, it's, it wasn't adaptive pricing. Which you can still say you don't like A/B tests. That's fine. I'm not telling you not to say that, but I just want to make that clear that like they weren't tracking people based on browser or location or anything like that. It was just randomized what price you saw. But I digress. With that, we're going to jump into a story about Mozilla, who had to issue new, here we go, who had to issue new GPG keys following an exposure, which is never fun. That always sucks. So yeah, let's see. Mozilla announced on Monday that it had issued a new GPG signing subkey used for some Firefox and Thunderbird artifacts after the previous key was accidentally exposed in a GitHub repository. The exposed key was used to sign Firefox and Thunderbird artifacts, such as Linux tarballs, RPM packages, and checksum files. An unencrypted copy was inadvertently committed to a GitHub repo, but it was a private repository accessible only to a small group of Mozilla developers who already had access to the key via other means. Mozilla said that our review of available audit records found no evidence the key was accessed by an unauthorized party. Nevertheless, they decided to revoke the exposed key and issue a new one. And in addition, they said that they had added protections to prevent similar incidents in the future. They do say that most users do not need to take any action. Users who manually verify GPG signatures will have to import the new key and revoke the old one. And in addition, those who use Firefox RPM packages may need to take some steps, which that might include me because I'm a Cubes user and everything's based on Fedora. So I should click that link, and Mozilla has shared detailed instructions right there. So yeah, I think I will say this is a little bit of a disappointing lack of transparency, in my opinion. It sucks that they didn't really seem to give a whole lot of details about how did this happen, how long was the key exposed. I don't remember if they gave details about what they did to prevent this from happening again. But I guess I will give them a lot of credit for like coming forward with it and being proactive. I mean, it was like a private repo, right? So in theory, there shouldn't be any risk, but still just being like, let's just be safe and rotate it. Like, I do respect that. But Jordan, to throw this back to you, I think the first question that I think a lot of people would have is, do you think this is a reason for people to reconsider using Firefox? Like, is this like an oh crap moment that shows like negligence or anything? Or do you think this is just kind of like things happen?
I think, we got to give Firefox a decent amount of props here because, they did exactly the right thing. There was a mistake. Mistakes do happen. It's not, uh, there's always going to be mistakes, but it's the way that they handled it, which I think is the most important part, which, like you said, immediately rotating that GPG key is the most important part. And they did that. They notified everyone. They did exactly what they should have done in that situation. If, for instance, we found that they did leak that key and then they just decided to do nothing about it, then that's where we would start having issues where I would be like, okay, maybe you should probably not use Firefox because they seem a little negligent. But, mistakes happen. They fixed it. They've done everything in their control to notify everyone. And, you know, that's basically the best case scenario in a situation like this. And I think it's always good. There's always going to be issues, especially when it comes to like, supply chain attacks where um, someone can, get access over packages and stuff like that. I think it's always important to be proactive and be aware of what's happening. But I think in this case, it sounds like most users don't have to be too concerned about anything apart from the RPM packages and also people that manually verify the GPG key, which I'm sure if you're one of those people, then that's probably something that you'll have to look into yourself. But for everyone else, nothing that you have to do. I think this is a good uh, this is good that Mozilla was open and transparent about making a mistake and fixing it promptly. So that's basically the best case scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah, supply chain attacks are really a whole different animal because, we always tell people to like make sure you use official outlets, like get things from the official source and whatnot. But like, if it's a supply chain attack, what can you do? You really just have to hope that the company is doing everything in their power and they're quick to respond, and kind of sucks. But yeah.
Yeah.
Before we jump into our next story, actually, we did get a quick question in the supporter signal chat. This person said, for transportation in general, is there anything we can do to be more private about where we go? And they said that, for example, if you live in an area with public transit, trains, metro, subways, buses, all these things often ask for some identifying information, such as your name and phone number, but usually lack the rigorous verification processes that places like airports enforce. Usually nobody checks my ID when I get on a bus. A lot of the time, they don't even check if I paid. They said, is it a good idea to travel under different names and use aliases wherever you can, or are there problems with that? And what are some other strategies we can use to combat surveillance when traveling? I'm not a lawyer. I kind of view travel more from a data breach perspective, because a lot of the time, especially nowadays with things moving into apps, a lot of the time it's like you don't physically, like, I'm pretty sure back where I lived in Texas, you couldn't even pay in cash for a bus ticket. I could be wrong. But whenever I took the bus, I usually used an app. And so at that point, it's, using a my pseudo number, using a simple login alias, trying to use a VPN, just trying to think like, if this app has a data breach, what information will it be able to reveal? I think I didn't even have to give it location information. I think I could just tell it what bus stop I wanted to look at. But I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. Cause also I don't want to sound defeatist, but a lot of buses nowadays also have cameras and your phone's tracking your location. So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of overkill to use aliasing information. And I do wonder if there would be any legal repercussions there. Like, one of those things where if something goes wrong, is it going to cause more problems that your ticket doesn't match your ID? I don't know. But I also don't do a lot of public transit because I live in America, and unfortunately our public transit is not that great. I would love to do more public transit, but it's just not always feasible. Do you have any thoughts on that question, Jordan?
I would say there's I can't really comment on like I've never heard of any public transport needing an app. So try and avoid using an app if you can. I'm not sure if that's always possible, but if you can avoid using an app, I would say avoid that. A lot of public transit systems that I've used have always had a card that you could use and you can top it up with cash. I'm not sure if that's also available. Like you'll have to do research into that, because a lot of places they'll have different options available, because there's people that are like don't know how to use a phone or don't have a phone. So what do you do then? Oh, I guess you can't use the bus, or like it doesn't. They have to make some different options. So definitely look into that. I think the most important part is also just try not to share like data with these transit companies if you can. Like don't download the app, don't give it your phone number, don't give it your address, don't give it all that information. Try and minimize the amount of data that you're sharing with those companies, or if it's a public system, then the government. So I think that's also an important thing. I think I'm kind of a little bit biased, but I do a lot of cycling, and no personal information required to do that. Walking, also no personal information required. Obviously, that is, like Nate said, it kind of depends where you live, if that's an option or not. If you live in a rural town, I'm sure that's probably not as viable, but that is another thing. And I think there's also so much information that you can share when you're driving a car too, like we've talked about with Flock, right? When you're driving around, there's cameras everywhere recording your car, recording your number plate. It's also not a great option either. It's pretty terrible. Cars are kind of terrible for privacy as well. They share a bunch of information. So it's just trying to like do harm reduction where you can. And obviously everyone has different requirements, because some people need to drive, some people can't drive, all sorts of things. So it's just about reducing what you can, and not, like Nate said, not going overboard, because as Nate said, there's cameras in the public transit system. There's all sorts of tracking that happens through that as well. And I'm sure somebody could work out who you are if they see, oh, this person taps on at this time, and then they just check the security cameras and they can see it's you. So there's always a trail when it comes to public transit, and anytime you step out your front door, you're basically going to be recorded. So just take that in mind. I guess we can jump here into the next story, though. This is kind of a group of stories this week, and it's about Signal. Signal making a bunch of new updates. So this week, I'll talk about the first one, and then I'll hand it over back to Nate. So this one is more linked devices are on the table, and the Android tablet. Now you can easily link another Android phone or Android tablet to your Signal account. We're also expanding linked device support on iOS, so you can link an iPhone to your Signal account in addition to our ongoing support for iPads. Look for Signal iOS version 8.22 and Signal Android 8.2 in the app/Play Store near you. So I think this is one of these things that we've all been like basically begging for Signal to do, and it was like one of these things that's so easy for them to do as well, and it's like a no-brainer for them to enable this. I think the most interesting thing about this is that previously, a lot of people were complaining that they would have to use Molly instead of the official Signal app to have that, to be able to link an Android device to another Android device to your account. And now that feature has been expanded officially to the official Signal app, which is really important. And it's better to be using the official Signal app if you can, just to reduce the amount of trust you have to have in different projects. So it's really cool that they've been able to release that as a new feature. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Nate?
No, I just I think it's really cool. I mean, obviously everybody's in a different situation, but my first thought was at my last job, I used my iPhone as a work phone. And so I would have my Android was my personal phone, and then my iPhone would have like Teams and all that crap on it. And the only reason I had to carry around the Android was because of Signal, because my wife exclusively uses Signal. And there was a period where basically I got some feedback that I was on my phone too much. So I was trying to be on my phone less. And I had to go make like a separate Signal account for the iPhone so that my wife could text me there. And it's like, it'd be really cool if we could just Like if this had existed at the time, it's like I could have just put Signal on my iPhone and been good to go. And so, yeah, I think this is really cool. I'm also thinking of the infamous time that my phone exploded. And I remember sitting there and going, how do I recover my my Signal account now? And, thankfully it was pretty easy because I knew the pins and everything. But yeah, to just like have that backup and everything is definitely super, super cool. So before I jump into the next one real quick, Laptop said, what's wrong with Molly? There's nothing wrong with it. Or actually, I'll turn that one over to you since you're the one that said it. What's wrong with Molly?
Obviously, when you're trusting a third party, like with your Signal chats and stuff, so it's adding another party that you have to trust, in addition to Signal. And also, Molly has been, unfortunately, they've been a bit slow on keeping up to date with Signal's updates. So, that is also a concern from a security perspective. It adds a bunch of interesting new privacy and security features, but it does seem like it's definitely a risk analysis thing. If the chats that you're having on Signal are really important and secure and stuff that can't leak, then obviously you want to reduce the amount of exposure that you could possibly have. So I think another important thing to talk about in this story is just the expansion of risk that happens when you add linked devices to your Signal account. I think there's less risk when it comes to adding a mobile device as a linked device. Whereas, if you're adding a desktop device, that's where we do have more concerns. We've had stories in the past where the local database on the Signal desktop app was not encrypted, or it's easier to access on a desktop because it doesn't have as robust permission system to restrict access from malicious apps. So, every linked device you're adding is increasing the attack surface. So that's another thing to discuss as well when it comes to this. And like I said, using Molly is going to increase the attack surface because you're adding another device and you're also trusting another group of people to manage that app, which isn't the only party you have to trust, more or less, because of the end-to-end encryption, the client. I mean, there's the Signal developers and then there's the Molly developers. So you're trusting the Signal developers to develop the Signal app, and then Molly is based on Signal, which then they also have to add code on top of that. So you are trusting Molly and the Signal developers at the same time. So that's an extra party that you have to trust to make sure that they are not inserting any malicious code, for instance, because if your client is compromised, then the end-to-end encryption doesn't matter because, it's only end-to-end. So that's why it's important. Hopefully that makes sense.
And also, real quick, I'm glad you mentioned the device raises your threat model thing. That is a good point. But I just want to point out, it's not even necessarily a malicious thing. It's just you have to trust them to implement it correctly. Like if I don't know why this example just popped into my head, but if there's a Christmas gift and let's say I'm going to give my sister a Christmas gift, or let's say my wife wants to give my sister a Christmas gift and she wraps it up and hands it to me. And then for some reason I deliver it to my sister. You have to trust me not to open it. Or in this case, for whatever reason, again, I don't know why this example popped into my head. For some reason, I decide to rewrap it. You have to trust me to wrap it right the same way that she did. It's more people involved. It's more chances for something to go wrong. And so even if it's not malicious, it's just, people make mistakes. And yes, Molly is open source, but are they auditing every single release? Is there somebody out there who's combing through every single release? Are there multiple somebodies? Because the first person who combed through it could have missed something. It's just there is always a level of trust involved. You're never going to completely remove. Trustless is kind of a buzzword in my opinion, because there is no such thing as trustless. You're always trusting someone somewhere, but the idea is to remove as much trust as possible. So, yeah, Dag here did mention that Molly can encrypt local logs on the device, which, yeah, Molly does some cool stuff, and we're not saying don't use it. It's just, keep in mind, those are the trade-offs. You're introducing another party into the mix. So on that note, we'll jump into the next quick Signal update, which is that Signal is introducing automatic key verification. This is pretty cool. So This is supposed to complement the existing safety number system. It's not supposed to replace it. It works through a system of verifications performed by you, your Signal connections, and third-party auditors that together provide the same assurance as manually verifying safety numbers. Unlike safety numbers, these verifications are done independently and do not require an in-person meeting or secondary communication channel. This system of verifications ensures that the association between a phone number or username and its public encryption key is globally consistent and transparent to all participants. This protects against scenarios where a key is swapped out without the owner's knowledge. For example, a malicious party compromised Signal and associated a different key with your connection's phone number. There are technical details in the blog post if you want to learn more. I'm not going to go into them because I'll skim here real quick, and you can see it's a very detailed. I actually do need to finish reading this. They do try to break it down into understandable terms, which is super awesome, and I do want to finish reading it, but I'm not going to read it all here. They said to see it in action, go to a Signal Connections profile, hit View Safety Number, and tap the Verify Automatically button under the Automatic Key Verification. The button will show a green check mark and encryption verified when the feature is available and verification succeeds. Over time, this verification, combined with the ones continually performed by your Signal connection and third-party auditors, ensures the consistency of a Signal Connections key across the Signal ecosystem. I did try to test this out personally with one of my contacts. I'm guessing they haven't updated yet because it didn't let me. It was like grayed out. I also have an issue where I'm usually pretty good about actually like doing the safety number thing with people just for fun. So I kind of had to dig through and be like, who have I not verified yet? But yeah, that's what I've got here. I don't know if I have any thoughts on that one. Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on that one. Again, it's not a replacement for the safety numbers. Do you have any opinions of that one, Jordan?
No, I think this is just Signal bolstering their ability to verify contacts and stuff. I think it's always important to give extra verification stuff, especially because I'm not verifying every single person in my contacts, but I think it's also good to mention why would you want to verify your contacts? Why would you want to do that in the first place, right? Like what benefit does this give, I guess? And I guess that would be if somebody's account gets taken over, you can tell that their account's been taken over because their safety number changes. That's one thing. It basically allows you to know that the person you're talking to is actually the person that you know on the other end, right? So this automated key verification system is, I guess, just like another additional layer. Like you said, it's not something that's going to replace the safety number system, but it's like, if something is going on with that, if there's an issue with the encryption, then it's going to notify you, I guess. So I think that is also important to have that. It does kind of, I guess, make me wonder if there's going to be further changes to how the key system works. Maybe is this something that they're going to improve on more in the future? I'm not really sure, but I think a lot of people don't I see some people in my contacts who their safety number constantly keeps changing and it's I think if this system is able to kind of keep it so that at least I know that this person is going to receive the message, I don't know, it's just it's another thing that can help verify that, right? So I don't know, I'm not really super hyped for this feature, but I think it's a good increase in safety for some people.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those behind the scenes, not super sexy. Like I'm not sitting here like, oh yeah, but I'm just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's cool. So yeah, I hear you. It's not the most exciting thing out there, but it is cool to see Signal constantly improving like that. So
yeah, I guess talking about Signal constantly improving, this another update here from Signal. Signal is working on registration without a phone number, but what form will it take? So this article here is from this unofficial website called aboutsignal.com. And basically what they've done is they've put together this article that basically shows every point where Signal is working towards removing the phone number requirement. There's been hints in GitHub code that Signal is exploring support for registration without a phone number, which, oh my goodness, if this happens, I'm going to be so happy, because that's like one of the biggest issues that some people have with Signal, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to give it my phone number. This is obviously a honeypot. It's like, well, if they remove it, then what's the argument at that point? There is no argument. And I think, I think this is exactly what we want Signal to be doing. We want them to be closing every single loophole that pushes people away from this app, because we want people to have the most secure communications possible. I guess here's kind of a rundown of what the changes look like. There's a commit here that said, don't allow or set registration lock on accounts with no phone number, add utility methods for getting country region codes for accounts that may not have phone numbers, add support for pessimistic locking of phone number-less accounts. Do not allow accounts without phone numbers to perform PNI key operations. So basically all those commits together show that Signal is making backend changes to support accounts without phone numbers, and, registration without a phone number will be optional. So, if someone is still wanting to use their phone number to sign up, they can. I think everyone in the privacy community is not going to be using a phone number, so that's cool. One issue that I did see with this that is probably the most frustrating thing is it looks like you can't convert a Signal account that uses a phone number into one that doesn't use a phone number, at least from the information that we have already, which is, I think, might become a bit of an issue, because if you're like me, you probably have like 100 Signal contacts or whatever, like 50 Signal contacts. And if you have to start a new account, you're going to have to re-add every single Signal contact that you have on your new account, which is kind of a pain. There's no easy way to do that. So that's probably my biggest concern with this. It's going to be kind of annoying to have to recreate your Signal account. I'm not really that bothered by the phone number requirement, so maybe this is just going to push people that were kind of resistant to using Signal over to using that. I'm not sure. But yeah, I guess this is one of those things. It's like, Nate, you were saying before, like, oh, this isn't like a really cool and sexy change. This is that. So how do you feel about it?
I feel pretty good about it. I like one thing we should add is that this article links to another article from August 7th that's titled Signal Login: Operational or Optional Registration Without a Phone Number Will Require One-Time Payment. That's really it. There's no information in the article. It's just, again, speculating. We don't know. Presumably it will allow like Apple Pay, Google Pay for convenience, but we don't know if they're going to allow like Monero or cryptocurrency or something as an alternative. But yeah, I think overall, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of this. Me personally, I think I'm a little bit paranoid, again, having had my phone explode and like so much of my life is in Signal. I'm kind of okay with like, yeah, I'm just going to leave my phone number there as a backup just in case. I don't think my threat model is so high that I need to get rid of the phone number. But yeah, it does kind of suck that you won't be able to remove a phone number. I do wonder if that's like a technical thing, that there's just like really no way for them to pull it off, or maybe that'll be something they do down the road. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. The phone number thing has never bothered me too much, but also I recognize my privilege of living in America where I can have as many phone numbers as I want, and I don't have to show ID to get a SIM card and stuff like that. I think Signal did the best they could to protect that information, in the sense that like phone numbers are hashed. So the government can't go, hey, give us a list of phone numbers, or like, give us a list of these people. But there's nothing stopping the government, again, going back to countries where you need to turn over ID to get a SIM card. There's nothing stopping the government from going, hey, here's a phone number. Do you have this as a user? And they can confirm or deny that, which is unfortunate. It's also, they say that it's the goal is to prevent spam. But again, spammers don't care. So what's to stop them from just creating infinite VoIP numbers and creating Signal accounts? I don't know. I've never really had a spam problem on Signal, but I've heard that some people have. So I don't know how effective that actually was. I don't think it's fair how much heat Signal took for this. Like you said, like people are always like, oh, it's a honeypot. And I think people confuse anonymity and privacy way too much. Like Signal never promised you to be anonymous, but it is private. It protects you. But still, I think this is a win. I think for people who don't want to turn over a phone number for any reason, whether it's a perfectly sensible one or just paranoia, it doesn't really matter. I think that's great that they have this option. And I just hope that they will support some form of private payment option, because otherwise I think it's kind of a hollow victory if it's like you don't have to hand over your phone number, but now you have to pay through the App Store, which is even less private than that in most cases. So yeah, I think those are kind of my only thoughts.
Yeah, totally fair. It'll be interesting to see how this ends up rolling out. I'm assuming that we'll probably get something in the beta slash alpha channel at some point where we'll be able to check out this, and definitely make sure to get subscribed here on YouTube or whatever platform you're on. And we'll have updates on that as it rolls out. But yeah, that's kind of everything on that one, unless you had anything more to add.
I just wanted to mention what Jonah said here. But yeah, everyone hates Threema for this. He's got a point. If I mean, to be fair, I guess Signal offers the alternative, right? Like you can use a phone number. But yeah, a lot of people, I haven't seen so much hate for Threema because they charge, but I've seen a lot of people point out it's like, yeah, it's a tough sell to get your family to spend $5 on a messenger or whatever. So I don't know. There's pros and cons, but yeah, he's got a point there. Speaking of anonymity, what do you think is the best messenger to use with a pseudonym? I mean, I think I have a thought on that. Do you have a thought on that one?
I mean, I have a thought. Yeah. Why don't you start us off here?
Probably SimpleX. That was like the first thing that came to mind for me is SimpleX like doesn't require any information to sign up, decentralized. Actually, one thing I do like about SimpleX that oh my God, I would kill for Signal to introduce this is SimpleX does different profiles that are all managed. If I understand it correctly, I haven't used it a ton, but there's like different profiles, but they're all managed in the same inbox. So like I could add you on SimpleX as Nate, and then I could add like my wife on SimpleX under my real name, and I use them both from the same screen, but you guys would both see a different identity, which is just like, holy crap, that is amazing. If I'm understanding that correctly, I might be wrong, but
yeah, no, it's interesting because I have this problem. I won't go super into depth about it, but I don't go by the name that I use on here in real life. And sometimes I have to add people on Signal, and I'm like, oh yeah, so that's like my name, like not like the name that you should call me, but like that's another name that I use, and people are kind of confused. And it's good when it gives you that option to basically have another name appear, or like you said, that would be really cool if you could just have it like be able to choose how you appear to that specific person. That does sound really cool, actually. I really hope that that's something that Signal could add, because it's an issue with Signal. I know, like, I don't know if you want to talk about it a bit, but I notice you definitely do have an interesting strategy regarding that on Signal. um, and I've thought about doing that because, like, sometimes I don't want to share what my real name is with people, and um, it's kind of one of those issues. I guess we should just quickly, before I swap it back to you here, though, we should probably discuss what are our recommendations right now on privacy guides. So, like you said, there's SimpleX, which does offer the ability to do that. So that's probably the main recommendation that you could use for that. As far as I know, none of the other recommendations really give you that option. So yeah, basically what Nate said is SimpleX is going to be your best option, the only option really in our recommendations. So definitely at least test that out. It's I've used SimpleX before. It works quite well. I think it's definitely not on par in terms of usability to Signal. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your interesting strategy that you use if you want. It's up to you.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So my thing on Signal, because for a while I had like a personal one and a new oil one, and then for some reason I think I just wasn't. I think actually what it was is like as the privacy side of my life has slowly become more of a main important part. I wanted more like instant access to things, like especially when Henry and I worked together on surveillance report. Like I didn't want to wait until I got home at the end of the day to get messages from him. So I started using my personal Signal account a lot more for new oil stuff. And I think there was even like something else I started using it for. I can't remember, but I started using it for another thing. And I am that psycho who uses different names in different parts of my life. So I'm very open about the fact that Nate is not my real name. And I use different names for like music and writing and stuff. And so I hit a point where, yeah, I had like all these different Signal accounts like or like different parts of my life converging in Signal. And the way I decided to get around it was to just make my display name was the man with many names. Because I did realize, I'm like, yeah, most people know, especially once they get to know me, you know, I'm like, yeah, so I have this, I work in privacy, I go by Nate. And like when I tell people, it's like, yeah, I have multiple names, which weirdly people are not surprised by. I don't know what that says about me, but it's yeah, it just hits a point where it's like people are just kind of used to it, like, oh yeah, the man with many names, because they know it's true, he has so many names. And it yeah, that's how I got around that. But I mean, a lot of people, you know, put a nickname or X or, you know, anonymous or whatever as the display name, but it's definitely not as robust of a system as the profile thing from SimpleX, which Laptop here said, I think you actually have to switch screens for profiles, but I still think it's easier with, it's still an easier implementation than like having Signal and Molly, or having like different graphene profiles, or, you know, all these different ways of doing things. So
Yeah, it's been an issue that I've been running into, where I've got like 2 Signal accounts. I have like, you know, and then I'm like, oh, but then I can't talk to someone using another one because it's got that name on it, and it's like got things that would reveal other information that I don't want to share. So it is kind of frustrating if you're stuck using something like Signal. It's like, oh, if it had that as a feature, that would be great, but it's just not something that Signal supports right now. So you're kind of stuck with using SimpleX Chat, which we do recommend on our site. So definitely check that out if that's something that you Jonah said, just make all your names start with the same letter, and your Signal profile can just be N or something.
yeah, but then the problem is I like to randomly generate my names. That way there's no like, you know how it's like people aren't as random as they think they are. So if you try to like randomly come up with passwords, they're probably not going to be as random as you think you are. And I don't know. I'm weird about it. I literally just use a random name generator. So I'm kind of at the mercy of what that comes up with. I know. I'm weird. You know what though? It's working. Like I said, like 9 out of 10 times people are just like, they don't even bat an eyelash. So, and I've had multiple people in different situations be like, who does this person know you at? Like they'll meet somebody new, like a friend or something, and they're just like, what name do they know you as? Laptop, does SimpleX have multi-device yet? Not exactly. It has like they have to be on the same LAN, and you can like scan a QR code and connect them. But technically, yes. So yeah. Let's see. If anybody has any last questions, go ahead and drop them now. I'm looking at the privacy guides. I'm looking at the forum thread. No new questions in there. And I've had the Signal chat open as well. So, I mean, if nobody has any questions, I'll go watch the latest episode of Silo.
Damn, yeah. I'm not seeing any questions in here either, so I feel like we can start wrapping it up. Just a reminder though, if you are a member, Privacy Guides member, that we do have a Signal group, and you can ask questions there if you don't want to share the question publicly or anything like that. Definitely consider posting in there if you're a member and you want to hear what we have to say about a topic, then feel free to do that. Oh, looks like we got a question here from Terracotta Pie. Should I be concerned with LinkedIn requiring me to verify my ID with Persona after changing my email? It depends, right? Like, I think it obviously sucks because Persona is a really suspicious company. Every single age verification or ID verification company is pretty suspicious. And I think Persona has been shown to be linked to like some weird stuff, and, you know, not particularly surprisingly, it's obviously has concerns about data privacy because you have to submit your ID to them. So I think it depends on how much you need LinkedIn. I think there's some industries where it's like, if you don't have a LinkedIn, you're basically never going to get a job. So, you know, if you have connections through LinkedIn that are really important, then obviously you need to make a decision based on that. I think, you know, LinkedIn is one of those platforms that I think it really depends on the industry that you're in, and, you know, having professional connections is important, right? If you want to find a job. So it's kind of up to you. I personally have given LinkedIn my ID. So I don't know. I think you gotta weigh up the downsides and benefits for that yourself. And if you don't really have that many connections and you're not really using it that much, then maybe it's time to let it go. But if you do need it for like professional connections, then I would say it's probably a good idea to do it. Unfortunately, it kind of sucks they're forcing your hand. So Jonah said, "Watch Silo live on stream." Yeah,
I'll
we'd get
do it,
immediately
man.
copy struck.
I was gonna say, what if we do it in the supporters chat, in the Signal chat? I'll just stream it there. So, sign up for a membership and you can watch Silo with me every week. Yeah, I just want to echo what you said about the like sometimes you got to do. I'm with you. Like I don't even have a LinkedIn, thank God. I haven't needed one, but I've met people that say that same thing. It's like, yeah, no, LinkedIn is where I found like my last 4 jobs. Like it's really critical to my industry, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're taken care of. Like, I mean, I guess if you want to go live out of your car or be homeless because you just don't want the data brokers to have an address, like that's on you. But like seriously, jokes aside, like if your privacy is so extreme that it's holding you back from like getting a job, advancing in your career, finding love, having a family, having stable mental health, and like I'm being a little bit joking but also serious, like that's when it's gone too far. So yeah, if you don't need LinkedIn, if you don't need to give them your ID, then please don't. But if that's the only way you're going to be able to like keep food on the table, then by all means you got to do what you got to do. So yeah. But let me check the forum post again. Nothing yet. I do like that the forum automatically updates like every once in a while. There have been a couple of comments since we started, and they're not questions, they're just comments to other users. But I like that I don't have to refresh the page. I just pull it up and it's automatically like, boom, new comment. I think that's pretty awesome. So, but I think that's all we got. I guess we'll go ahead and call it a stream.
Sounds
so
good.
all the updates from This Week in Privacy will be shared on the blog every week. So sign up for the newsletter or subscribe with your favorite RSS reader if you want to stay tuned. For people who prefer audio, we also offer a podcast available on all podcast platforms and RSS. And this video will be synced to PeerTube. Privacy Guides is an impartial nonprofit organization that is focused on building a strong privacy advocacy community and delivering the best digital privacy and consumer technology rights advice on the internet. If you want to support our mission, you can make a donation on our website at privacyguides.org. To make a donation, click the red heart icon located in the top right corner of the page. You can contribute using standard fiat currency via debit or credit card, or opt to donate anonymously using Monero or your favorite cryptocurrency. Becoming a paid member unlocks exclusive perks like early access to video content and priority during the Q&A. You'll also get a cool badge on your profile in the Privacy Guides forum and the warm, fuzzy feeling of supporting independent media. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.